There is a whole other section of Florence that I would highly recommend going to. It's a separate section that goes across the Arno River on the Ponte Vecchio bridge is the main bridge, but there are other bridges. But the Ponte Vecchio is the one who's the most tourist draw. Although there are places to see and shops and food, the biggest attraction there is the Medici Palace. Many of the buildings here along the river are residential, and there are a variety of bridges that you can cross back and forth between here and the main Florence area. In 1565, Cosimo Medici had the Vescari corridor built on the Ponte Vecchio bridge in order to connect his home in this area to Florence's town hall. He didn't want to walk through the masses of people. He wanted his own walkway, and he was able to do that. But he also had a law passed that said you cannot put any smelly things on the bridge below him, because he didn't want to smell any of the smelly butcher shop stuff. So to this day, the only thing that is set up on the Ponte Vecchio bridge is all these nice shiny jewelry shops. This is all within 15 minutes walk from the central piazza area with all the museums and the Duomo. We found Florence to be a fairly easy place to walk around in, but again, we stayed in the old section, so everything we wanted to see is within walking distance of that area. There are the newer sections of the city, but we just don't find them that interesting. The Palazzo Pitti, if I'm saying that correctly, is also known as the Pitti Palace, and it's a vast, mainly Renaissance palace. It's situated on the south side of the Arno River, and it's just a short distance from the Ponte Vecchio bridge. The core of the present palazzo dates from 1458 and was originally the town residence of Luca Pitti, another ambitious Florentine banker. The palace was bought by the Medici family in 1549 and became the chief residence of the ruling families of the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, which is what they were. It grew great as a treasure house, and later generations amassed paintings and plates and jewelry and all kinds of other possessions. They made sure they had a good view to look down on their city. I'm not sure what the significance of turtles is around here, but they use it a lot in their sculptures. This is just their backyard. I'll bet they don't do their own gardening. You spend way more time outside the palace than inside. In the late 18th century, the palazzo was used as a power base by Napoleon and later served for a brief period as a principal royal palace of the newly united Italy when Florence was its capital. The palace and its contents were donated to the Italian people by King Victor Emmanuel in 1919. This is also the largest museum complex in Florence and is divided into several principal galleries or museums. The land on the Boboli Hill at the rear of the palace was acquired in order to create this huge formal park and gardens, and today it's known as Boboli Gardens. You go inside one of the museums that is set up in a room off of the gardens, and I'm not really sure if what all of this stuff is, but to me it just looks like a lot of dinnerware. Multiple sets of dinnerware. And you gotta wonder, how many sets of dinnerware do you actually need? Then you find out that there were multiple Medici families living here at the same time. I guess that's sort of where the saying came from, keep your enemies close but your friends closer. And sometimes I think that refers to family. Some of this stuff is actually from Napoleonic times, but I can't tell the difference. Napoleon's family was actually more Italian than French anyway. He was born in Corsica, which was actually part of the Italian city-state of Genoa. This is the back wall, and it looks more like a fortress wall, but that would not be that surprising because the Medicis actually created an awful lot of enemies. Some of their family members were assassinated, and I'm sure they did in like. The Medici family not only ruled Florence, but after a while most of all Tuscany. And there's just way too much family history to get into here, but they are an interesting family. And say what you want about the Medicis, but it was their money that helped to start the Renaissance and patronized the creation of a lot of the art that now we refer to as masterworks. They were the first to actually recognize art for art's sake, not just as a religious representation. They sponsored the likes of Da Vinci, Donatello, Botticelli, Michelangelo, and a whole slew of other ones. Works like the Statue of David would not be here today if not for their patronage. The earliest records they have of the Medici family says that they came from the Mugello Valley and they arrived in Florence somewhere around 1200. The earliest origins of the family are really difficult to track because later on, when they became rich, powerful, and very successful, they tried to change their lineage and invented their legends and stories. Hey, you see, Americans aren't the only ones who try to rewrite their history. The founder of the family would be Medici di Patrone, who lived around the year 1000 and was a doctor by profession. Medici is the Italian word for doctors. They first attained wealth and political power in Florence through their success in commerce and banking. And they did so successful and became so powerful that 4 Medicis became popes, and even Mario Puzo couldn't write this kind of stuff. Their genes have been passed through many of Europe's royal families. The last Medici ruler actually died without a male heir in 1737, so the entire family dynasty died out after almost 3 centuries and the beginning of a long European reign. Florence is just a great place to visit. A whole lot of stuff to see here. And like I said, I wouldn't mind living here.